Hi, everyone. My name is Tantek Çelik, and I work for Mozilla. I'm also co-founder of a community called the IndieWeb. And just going to leave this up for a second. I'm actually going to go over to the whiteboard. I figure you all have seen plenty of diagrams like with dots and arrows and segments and stuff, but I figured I'd draw one more. One of our hopes for the original web was that it was going to be an actual web of everything, interconnected, peer-to-peer, all that. But that's not what actually happened, right? The web as it was originally turned out to be an open but very much client-server architecture. In other words, you had all these websites, and then you had the actual computers that people used that connected to them directly. So really, it was all client-server. Even if you went and accessed the web page from one site and it had images on another site, it still went to your client and went back to the server. Each one of these centralized nodes, of course, what that's going to cause us to happen is the situation we have today, where everyone is accessing the same small handful of websites from their devices. And we know these as our social media silos. So, why is that a problem? Well, social media silos, as we know, if you were at Tristan's talk yesterday, you know that there's a lot of problems with them. Beyond like loss of expressivity, loss of identity, silos would take your identities away, loss of data, DMCA takedowns, other takedowns, or you lose everything from site deaths. So worse than that, what we found out is we actually lose our focus, we lose our time, we lose our self-esteem, even lose our reason. You look at arguments on Twitter, loss of civility, and worse, loss of safety with all the harassment and abuse that happens on social media these days. So the proposal is to use your own site instead, and that's what the IndieWeb puts forth with a set of principles. Now, that's kind of a challenge today because how do you leave all those social media silos and actually own your data? Well, you have to start somewhere. So one of the key things you can do is actually build your own site and use that as well as social media. So that's what we encourage a lot of people to do. And then the key there is to, once you've built your own site and others have built their own site, is actually to federate between them instead of just talking through some social media central silo. So we do that with a set of building blocks. And the building blocks that are key for this is like, first of all, you want to stay in touch, so you send copies of information to the silos. So here's an example of a post that's on my own website, but also a copy of it on Twitter that links right back to it. Here's an example of a GitHub issue that I filed on my own website, automatically cross-posted to GitHub as well. So the other piece of this is getting the feedback, and that is comments from all these different social media silos. Like you see a post here, and it's got comments from Facebook, from Twitter, all those, and we call that process backfeed, which you can do. But more importantly, the peer-to-peer piece is the piece that we're really interested in. That's web mention. And with web mention, you can get, that's one of our key building blocks, all kinds of comments back and forth. It's a W3C standard. Here's an example of a post. It's got lots of likes and comments from all kinds of places, from Mastodon, from independent websites, from different websites, all via web mention. Here's an event that's got RSVPs, peer-to-peer, also via web mention. So these are built on other building blocks like microformats. And there's a great article about sending your first web mention that I'd like you all to check out. So that's all I've got time for today. I'm willing to go into a lot more detail about how IndieWeb works, but these are the key building blocks to just get started owning your data. And if I could leave you with one message, try to post on your own site instead of Twitter. Even if you post, in addition to that, post to Twitter. And try to post on your own site instead of GitHub. Almost every presentation I've seen the past 2 days have had Twitter handles and GitHub URLs. So let's start acting in a decentralized way as well as talking about how to make a decentralized web. Thank you. Yeah.
I feel like maybe it's been asked a lot to you, but what do you do with people that don't necessarily have the technical skills to even think about how to operate a site, even connecting like a domain to some hosted solution, let alone like
Right, great question.
running a
So
server.
the barrier to entry to like operating a site or owning a site is too damn high, right? The nice thing is that in the last couple of years, a bunch of services have popped up, like micro.blog, that from the very launch support the IndieWeb building blocks we're talking about, web mentions, microformats, micropub. And they are literally as easy to sign up for as Twitter or GitHub. So that bar has been lowered to like, if you want to sign up for a service that interoperates with standard protocols, it's just as easy as Twitter now. So the only extra step is buying a domain name and setting it up to point at micro.blog, which they have instructions to walk you through doing. So it used to be a lot harder to like run your own server and all that. That's gotten easy enough that I would bet every single person in this room could set it up within minutes. Yeah.
What do you feel we need to work on to bring this to the next level or drive adoption or make it better?
So we've documented over 1 million web mentions sent across sites peer-to-peer already. That's comments, likes, and all that. And so the next level, I think that the most important things to think about are making sure that these systems all reflect the values that we want, including avoiding abuse, avoiding spam, avoiding, minimizing misinformation and distraction, all the things that the silos have given us. I think the key is that as we expand these systems, we need to test them with each other and make sure that, hey, if someone's abusive, someone can block things. If someone's spreading misinformation, it's easy to filter it or annotate it as misinformation. And I would say beyond that, start with your own website. Like my challenge to everyone in this room is literally, if you don't already have a domain name, get a domain name. If you have a domain name, set it up so you can post simple notes on it. And then send those to Twitter. I've been posting from my own site to Twitter since 2010. Literally at T, every single tweet you see there since 2010 came from my website. And then GitHub issues I started this year, photos before that. So I'd say just start. That's the kind of the approach to IndieWeb, is to just start with something simple. And then as you find yourself using it more and more, you're like, this is great. I really like using my own website instead of being distracted by social media. And you'll find you want to do it more.
What's the mobile story for IndieWeb? Like, I live on mobile apps and haven't personally found a good solution for mobile IndieWeb.
Great question. So there's two halves to that. So the question is, what's the mobile story? Mobile posting and mobile reading, both of which are important. So the first is that we have this awesome standard called micropub, also W3C recommendation, and there are a bunch of different mobile clients. That service that I mentioned, micro.blog, they actually launched with an iOS app, and instead of creating their own protocol from client to server, they just used micropub. So you could use their client to talk to your server, their mobile client to talk to your server if you wanted to. Then on the reading side, this is the most exciting thing that's happened in web. Both Android and iOS clients and a web view. These are all free to download and use, and they actually show all the posts you subscribe to in chronological order. I know that's kind of quaint these days, but I kind of like it that way.
Thanks a lot, man.
Yeah.